At the beginning of the story, we see Frank Moses wake up. He goes to make his morning coffee, after which he exercises. As he receives his pension check, he gets happy and makes a call to his representative at the pension administration. Her name is Sarah, and as soon as he says it's Frank Moses, she lights up. He tells her he didn't receive his check again, and she apologizes and says she will send another one for him. He asks about her day, and she replies that it sucks, saying she wants to travel. He asks what new book she's reading, and she says it's about a supermodel couple who get recruited by the CIA to stop an assassin in Milan, which she thinks is super exciting. They end the call, and in the evening Frank reads the book she talked about. That night, Frank wakes up early, and as he comes downstairs, armed men are following him through his house. They attack, but Frank is gone and suddenly appears behind them, quickly attacking them back. Having fended them off, Frank hears others outside and creates a trap in the kitchen. He goes downstairs to pick out some money and weapons. Suddenly his trap sets off, and his house is bombarded with bullets. Mercenaries enter his home, and Frank welcomes them wholeheartedly, taking them down one after the other. Once every mercenary is dead, he leaves. Next, Sarah is seen being driven home by some weird date. Inside, she talks to herself, saying she won't see that guy again. Suddenly Frank appears, saying in a very soft voice that he's Frank, and she gets scared. She tells him to get out, but suddenly notices he has packed her bag and also vacuumed her apartment. Thinking he's a freak, she begins yelling, and Frank tries to stop her, saying someone is trying to kill him, and now her too. Sarah asks why anyone would want to kill her, and Frank replies that they have listened to their conversations over the phone and know he likes her. Frank then tries to explain how he hoped to meet her under different circumstances, but says he hopes they will both look back at this as an adventure. She begins screaming inaudibly, and Frank replies that he is hungry too and asks her what they should eat. Meanwhile, a man is seen preparing something and suddenly walks up to another man and hangs him. His name is William Cooper. Outside, he meets a woman who says he has a new target. Cooper reads his target as a retired analyst from the CIA in New Orleans. Frank and Sarah arrive at a motel, and he ties Sarah to a bed. She tells him she won't press charges if he lets her go, but he says they are way past that. He tells her he's CIA, but she doesn't believe him. Frank comments that she has beautiful eyes and informs her he has to go talk to someone. Next, a man called Joe is having problems with the TV. He gets help from a woman, but starts looking at her, saying she's nicer to watch than the TV. Suddenly Frank appears, commenting that Joe should be ashamed of himself. Frank tells Joe he was attacked by a wet team and shows him some fingers. Joe makes a call and tells Frank that those who hit him also killed a New York Times reporter called Stephanie Chong. Meanwhile, Cooper is looking through Frank's papers and finds a pension check. At the same time, Sarah frees herself, and suddenly Cooper sees her phone making a 911 call. Not long after, a cop tells Sarah he can take her home. She follows him, but is grabbed and injected with something out of nowhere. Frank appears to save her. They take the police car, and while she is high, she comments that he's handsome. A car crashes into them, and Frank steps out heroically and counters the attacker, which is Cooper. As he steps back into the car, Sarah remarks that he really is CIA. Frank informs the police over the radio that a suspect is driving a black SUV. He sets a trap, which Cooper walks straight into, and the police arrive to arrest him. Next, Sarah wakes up asking how they got to New York City. Frank says he hopes she'd be more understanding about the situation, and she replies that she hoped not to be kidnapped, drugged, or get a date without hair. Frank says he's sorry, and she thanks him for saving her. They go to Chinatown, and Frank picks up duct tape, making her exclaim that he can't go around duct taping everyone. Minutes later, they talk to Stephanie Chang's mother, who shows a card she received on the day Stephanie died, with mysterious numbers on it. Frank then asks where Stephanie went to college. Frank explains to Sarah that the numbers are a classification for Asian literature. She asks how he knows, and Frank starts speaking Chinese fluently, which impresses her. They find a book with a note in it. On it is a list of names, and almost all of them have recently died in mysterious circumstances, except one man. Frank makes a call but learns that the man has just been murdered at the CIA. Cooper storms into his boss, saying Frank is not an analyst. She gives him a note saying he will meet the records keeper. Cooper remarks that he didn't know this place existed, and the records keeper says it doesn't. They bring out Frank's files, and everything is blacked out. The records keeper tells him that Frank Moses was one of the most effective Black Ops agents the CIA ever had, saying some thumbsucker labeled him Red when he retired. Cooper asks what it means, and he replies, "You know, Red, retired extremely dangerous." He adds that they don't make them like Frank anymore, and Cooper smiles. Frank tells Sarah they need to find Marvin Boggs, and they take a motorboat to a seemingly deserted place. Suddenly, Marvin appears. Marvin asks why they are trying to kill him, and Frank replies that they're not trying to kill him and asks him to take the knife away from his balls. As Marvin leads them to his house, Sarah asks why he's not living in the actual house, and Marvin answers that he doesn't want eyes on him. As Frank mentions he got attacked, Marvin begins babbling, saying Frank cannot trust the systems, phones, satellites, dentists all around him. Frank stops him and gives him the list of dead people, and Marvin goes to check his files. He discovers that 5 of the people on the list, not including themselves, were in Guatemala in 1981. Apparently, a village was destroyed there, and they were tasked to make it look like it never happened. Marvin gets happy, yelling that he never thought he'd take out the pig again. Next, Marvin becomes suspicious about Sarah, saying they have to get rid of her, but Frank says they will not because he likes her. Marvin then sees a helicopter and notes its number, N9748C. Sarah tells them that a man on the list called Singer is going to be at the air freight terminal tomorrow. The next day, the trio heads for the terminal when suddenly Marvin grabs a woman. Marvin tells Frank she's been following them and says she has a camera. Frank tries to stop him, showing that she has no camera in her bag. Marvin gets disheartened, and Frank tells him to go get the car. Not long after, they meet Singer. Singer explains that a reporter asked him about Guatemala, but he didn't say anything. Frank informs him that everyone from Guatemala is now dead except him and themselves. Suddenly, Marvin sees a helicopter with the same number as before, N9748C. While they discuss whether it's the same helicopter, Singer gets shot. Apparently, Cooper has ordered them all to be killed. The trio escapes, but the woman Marvin suspected earlier appears, shooting at them. They open Marvin's pig and start shooting back. The woman appears with an RPG and fires at them. After the shot, Marvin walks out, and the two have a standoff. He manages to take her out with his gun by hitting the next rocket-propelled grenade. Afterward, Frank remarks that it was a great shot. Cooper is upset, and the 3 manage to escape while Sarah rests. Marvin tells Frank that he really knows. Marvin then says how to show a girl a good time. He adds that there is only one place they can go to find out why they are coming after them, but they will get killed if they try to get there and will need some serious help. Next, Marvin tells Frank this is not the kind of help he meant, saying that the last time these guys helped, they put some electrical wires in some not very nice places. Frank decides to go in alone. It is the Russian embassy, and as he reaches the entrance, he is caught by soldiers. A Russian man says this is the last thing he expected when he woke up this morning, adding that he has long dreamt of killing Frank. Surprisingly, he changes his attitude, brings out vodka, and they make a toast. The man, whose name is Ivan, says he hasn't killed anyone in years, and Frank comments that it's sad. Shortly after, Frank tells Ivan he is going to break into the CIA and needs help. Ivan adds that he can't help him, but when Frank offers him a favor, Ivan can't say no. Next, Sarah is overjoyed that she gets to come along. They manage to get inside, but in the elevator Sarah drops Frank's contact lens to get past a security check. The alarm triggers, and as soldiers appear, Sarah convinces them to help find it. Frank puts the lens back in, gets authenticated, and the soldiers let them go. He then holds down a button, and they reach a secret floor. Frank tells her the code to get past the door is unbreakable, but he opens it using another secret method. The records keeper, whose name is Henry, is happy to see Frank. Frank asks about the Guatemala files, and Henry helps him, explaining that a new guy with cute hair came down looking for his file, a guy named Cooper who looked a little tough. Frank tells Henry to take care. Next, Frank walks in on Cooper, and they begin fighting, all while Sarah waits in the coffee room. Frank asks Cooper if he was trained by Kordeski, which Cooper confirms. Frank then comments that he himself trained Kordeski and dislocates Cooper's arm. Frank runs, but gets shot in the shoulder. He turns on the fire alarm, grabs Sarah, and then goes to a nearby room where he mixes some chemicals in a bucket. The two leave, and soon after, Cooper and another man see Frank's explosion. Sarah tricks a fireman into helping Frank, who is bleeding and disguised. Frank gets past guards looking for him, and the duo make their way into an ambulance. They see Marvin with a gun to his head, and suddenly Joe opens the door, making a joke about Marvin, after which they take off. Cooper's boss is angry that Cooper didn't manage to kill Frank, and Cooper asks what Frank did to even deserve to be killed. His boss answers that she has no idea. Sarah is worried since Frank is still bleeding, and Frank says they have to go to Eagle's Nest. Marvin comments that they will definitely get killed if they do. They arrive at Eagle's Nest anyway, and Frank looks around the house, seeing a woman named Victoria. She asks if he's there to kill her, and Frank says no, after which she asks him to tell Marvin to stand down. Victoria helps Frank with his bullet wound, after which they all gather together. Joe comments that there's someone called Dunning on the list who's still alive, a gangster whom the CIA is protecting. Frank says they should go visit him, and Victoria says she will join them. Joe remarks that he's glad they're getting the band back together. Meanwhile, Cooper checks on his family at home when his boss calls him to explain that Frank has a new target. Next, the team arrives disguised at Dunning's home, and Victoria spots the CIA surveilling the place from the woods. Dunning and Joe go into a soundproof room to conduct their business so the CIA won't hear them. However, as they begin talking, there is a knock on the door. Thinking it's his guards, Dunning opens it, only to see Frank, who knocks him unconscious. Outside, Sarah talks about Frank, and Victoria reveals that she was once in love with an agent, but she was in MI6, and he wasn't. One day, she was ordered to kill him to prove her loyalty, and she ended up putting 3 bullets into his chest. Inside, Dunning asks who they are, and they answer that they were the ones who cleaned up his mess in Guatemala. They pick up tools and ask who he helped escape from Guatemala. Scared, Dunning answers that he flew out a young lieutenant who was the son of the man who is now the vice president. They ask about the New York Times reporter, and Dunning tells them she called him twice, so he called the vice president, who is now trying to clean up his past. Suddenly, Victoria warns them that they've been blown. Cooper arrives, and agents surround the area. Joe knocks Dunning out, and then the phone rings. It's Cooper, telling them to give up and come out. Frank explains that the vice president ordered the hits on them to cover up war crimes he committed in Guatemala. Cooper doesn't believe him, but Frank rhetorically asks how Cooper knew he would find them at Dunning's house. Cooper promises that no one will shoot them and that he will personally make sure Frank gets to testify. Victoria says agents are everywhere, but she can cover them to the woods if they create a distraction. Joe says someone will have to make the hard choice, and Frank hugs him, saying it has been an honor. As someone comes out, Cooper tells every agent to hold their fire, but despite his order, one agent shoots the man, making Cooper angry and confused. Cooper runs up and realizes it's not Frank who came out. Frank and Marvin escape, and Victoria covers for them. After that, she and Sarah try to get away too, but Sarah trips, falls, and is taken by agents. Victoria reaches the others and informs them that the CIA took Sarah, surprising everyone. Ivan suddenly appears in a car out of nowhere. Later, the team makes a toast to Joe, after which Victoria says they must find a way to expose the vice president's war crimes. Marvin starts talking about how they will torture Sarah if they do, and Frank leaves, upset. Victoria calls Marvin an idiot, and Ivan goes to talk to Frank. He shows Frank 3 bullet wounds in his chest, saying the love of his life once shot him and now sits outside his house drinking vodka. He tells Frank that when he woke up alive, he knew she loved him because otherwise it would have been a shot to the head, adding that one does crazy things for love. As Sarah is interrogated, Cooper gets a call from Frank. Frank tells him that what he loves can be taken away from him. Suddenly, Cooper traces the call to his own house and becomes scared. Frank threatens him not to hurt Sarah, or Cooper's family will get hurt. He then tells Cooper that he will kill the vice president. CIA agents arrive at Cooper's home, and when Cooper himself arrives, he finds the list of dead people and the Guatemala file in his living room. Back at the CIA, Cooper questions Sarah about the file, and she answers that they found it at the secret records depository in the building, adding that Frank will eat him for lunch afterward. Cooper tells his boss that he will need to help the Secret Service defend the vice president somewhere else. Frank tells Marvin that he put a few toys away just in case, and Marvin comments that the vice president is going to love this. Next, at a fancy gala, Cooper is helping the Secret Service while the team prepares to take down the vice president. After the vice president gives his speech, Ivan takes Victoria for a dance and tells her that her radiance almost makes him speechless. The music stops, and Ivan goes to work, walking around and spraying a substance in the room. Victoria locks a door using a special necklace, after which she goes to meet Marvin. Ivan suddenly yells that he smells gas and activates the fire alarm, and the vice president and the Secret Service can't get. They get out through another door and take a different exit. They reach their cars and start driving, but Victoria shoots at them and completely devastates their vehicles. While Cooper is trying to reach them, Ivan arrives in an elevator, picks up a pen, and triggers a bomb in the vice president's backup car just as it arrives. The Secret Service then brings the vice president back inside. At the same time, Cooper manages to reach a heavy machine gun that is now unmanned. Meanwhile, the Secret Service is once again stopped by Victoria, who is getting help from Marvin. As the Secret Service flees again with the vice president, Marvin comments that he remembered the Secret Service being tougher. They try to get out, but they are shot at, and unfortunately Victoria is hit. Marvin creates a distraction with smoke grenades, and they manage to get away. Victoria tells him she's no use anymore, and that he should go. She tries to get out on her own, but gets stuck, and suddenly the police close in on her from nowhere. Ivan appears and helps her open the door. Victoria tells him she loves him, and he replies that he knows. Outside, the vice president and the Secret Service suddenly see Marvin running toward them wearing a suicide vest. They start running, and as a presidential car appears, the vice president gets inside. Cooper appears, yelling to stop the car, but he is ignored. Minutes later, the driver turns his head, and it's Frank chasing them. The vice president later wakes up, and when Frank mentions he was in Guatemala and saw what he did, the vice president starts crying. Frank calls Cooper and tells him he has 15 minutes to bring Sarah to a nearby power plant, or he will kill the vice president. Cooper informs his boss where they are and tells her to alert the Secret Service. Cooper arrives and tells Frank it's over, but Frank says they will see. A limousine appears, and Cooper's boss steps out with Sarah, along with Dunning, but no Secret Service agents arrive. Cooper wonders what is going on, and suddenly Dunning shoots the vice president. Frank says Sarah goes free, and Dunning replies that Frank will have to trade his life for hers. Frank tells Sarah that he tore up all those checks just to talk to her, and she replies that she knows. Dunning tells Cooper to cuff Frank, which he does, but realizing his boss and Dunning are dishonest, Cooper gives Frank the key. Dunning then says the world will learn that Frank shot the vice president and Sarah, but suddenly Frank starts walking toward them. Cooper shoots his boss, then everyone else is shot, and Frank crushes Dunning's throat. The team appears from the shadows, and Frank hugs Sarah. Frank then thanks Cooper, and Cooper says he will take care of everything. Suddenly Marvin shoots an already dead guy and asks everyone if they want pancakes. On the drive home, they are happy since no one is chasing them anymore. But then Ivan reminds Frank that he owes him a favor. Marvin can't believe Frank gave a favor to Ivan, and Ivan explains that it's just a tiny little nuclear problem in Moldova. Sarah asks if they can go, and Frank says yes, and the two start kissing. In the last scene, Marvin comments that he thinks Moldova sucks, while he and Frank are being shot at by soldiers. With this, the story ends here. If you love the explanation, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Thanks.